Okay, I will start sharing if I can. Just a second here. How do I start sharing here? Just, okay, is that shared? Yeah, everybody see it? Yes. Okay. Okay, we're up to class 8. I'm going to talk about Mars and Jupiter tonight, and we'll get right to it here. Okay. So this is our basic information on Mars. Mars rules the muscular system, okay, the immune system. The immune system makes antibodies the immune system, the frontline troops of the immune system are cells that destroy things that are not yourself, right? They're sniffing around. It could be a bacteria, it could be a virus, could be something. So parts of the immune system makes antibodies, and they go around and they kind of tag anything that doesn't look like you. And then the other cells come around and they rip it up, they destroy it, and it's gone. This is Mars. I always remember the quote from C.C. Zane. He says, if you need something built or something destroyed, right, you're going to have to find some Mars energy to do that, right? Or someone with Mars prominent to do that. And so I'm going to show you the immune system. I'll give you some more details. The immune system destroys things and then rebuilds. It builds the tissues, right? So all wound healing, right, comes from Mars, right? The processes come from Mars. You're building new tissue there. So I'm going to show you more details there. But so the immune system, and then the red corpuscles of the blood, the red blood cells, okay? Influence on the gonad glands, the ovaries and the testes, and also the secretion of adrenaline and cortisol by the adrenal glands. Now, I'm quoting from Zane. They call this hormone is cortisol, they call it now, which sounds very similar to the drug cortisone, right? And the reason is that they were inspired by cortisol and said, well, that's so cool. Let's just make a drug like that, but make it 4 times stronger. So that's that's your natural cortisol, and then you can pharmaceutical cortisone. It's anti-inflammatory. It actually cortisol puts a brake on the immune system so that it doesn't run away and burn down the house, right? And so they can use corticosteroids if somebody has an immune system, immune dysregulation, autoimmunity that's going to tear down the house. They can use artificial steroids in order to do that. So. And okay, qualities: hot, dry, violent. This is Max Heindel. Cornell says astringent. Astringent is the same as dry. Astringent is drying and puckering, right? And also acid, and this is true. The acid process in the stomach would be Mars. Impulsive, Zane, impulsive and rash. So we're going to get more into some of the nature. You can understand the nature with some of the diseases and conditions. Weather, it's the hottest weather. If it's cold weather, Mars can actually make it colder, which seems counterintuitive, but that's the same way. And Saturn also can create destructive heat, a Saturn aspect in weather for that. So. And then thoughts of initiative, aggression. When it's harmonious, thoughts of constructive initiative. You get, I'm going to build this today, right? I'm going to, these kind of thoughts are, which require some wrestling with reality in order to get the thing built. Constructive thoughts of protection of the weak and the helpless. When discordant, thoughts of lust, destruction, strife, and anger. Um, the last, I'm talking about the destructive, selfish aspects of sex that are possible, and not the sexual urge itself. Yeah. The pathology, it tends to wounds, abrasions, scrapes, cuts, tears, surgical operations, you cut with a knife, right? Hot, dry, feverish, and inflammatory complaints. I'm going to talk a little bit about fever and inflammation in a minute. Violence, painful diseases, diseases that cause acute pain. Okay. Contagious diseases invade, that means the contagion, they invade you, they come across your boundaries. There's something about Mars and boundaries. You know, I was, yeah, I don't need to do that. I did a nature retreat one time, and I was dealing with a situation and dealing with some anger, and I spent like 3 days alone in the wilderness, right? And was in this altered state, and as I was walking out, I started looking, and I said, "Oh, those Douglas fir trees, they're really angry." And I said, yeah, they're so tired of being burned up and being eaten by bugs that they're angry, and they express their anger by putting this fire retardant sap, this fire retardant thick bark. They're going to put out, you're not going to burn me anymore, right? Now I'm going to put this insecticidal sap out there, right? And even a little rodent, right, is angry, right, with those 2 little front teeth. They'll run away in a minute, but you don't want to poke your finger in a rodent hole when they're poking out, right? Because they no, you're not coming across this boundary, and they'll bite you, they'll rip things apart. So you see, I understood from Hermetic studies, everything has its protective urge, everything has its Mars, but Mars is about maintaining and protecting boundaries, repelling invasions, right? Or also constructing defenses for that. So contagious diseases such as smallpox, measles, scarlet fever, and chickenpox. It's a factor in burns. Typhoid fever is a bacterial disease. Malaria, a mosquito parasite. Blood poisoning, a systemic blood poisoning. We're going to have a case. I'm going to do a case. They call that sepsis today. They don't call it blood poisoning anymore. They say the person has sepsis, and it's a system-wide infection. Very serious. The person's in intensive care if they have that, and if people develop sepsis, maybe a third of them won't survive. That's Mars. Rheumatism, that's rheumatic, painful joint diseases. He says some kidney troubles and urinary complaints. This is the list from Zane. Okay. Therapeutics, thermotherapeutics. Thermotherapeutics can be a heat lamp. People can apply heat to a sore joint. You can put a heat lamp on the joint, it warms the area, it brings blood to the area. Also, hot water as a therapy. I put this in here as exercise therapy, right? This is muscles. This is moving your body around. This is using your muscles. And it's one of the most, this is the constructive aspect of Mars, is moderate, pleasurable activity, not extreme, is one of the most important things to maintain the health. It's indispensable to maintain the health. So exercise therapy. This can also be, you have some Mars energy coming down the pike that you're afraid of how it's going to express. You can go out and, chop a cord of wood and go for a jog, can use up some of that energy, and it might not express in destructive ways for that. So, aerobic exercise, and also strength building. They say because Mars is burning, if you're walking briskly enough that your breath increases, right? This is, you're activating Mars, right? Because the increase in oxygen intake, you've started the metabolic fire, and the fire needs oxygen, right? The same way you blow on a fire to make it go. So if you're, the magic word for an exercise program is brisk but comfortable walking, 20 minutes a day, right? And people can live 10 years longer if they do that as a habit. right? So, but this is Mars. The pleasurable, moderate aspect of Mars is important there. Also, surgery is a legitimate therapeutic. Sometimes surgery will save somebody's life. Also, acupuncture. Zane didn't discuss this because it really wasn't around then, except in Chinatowns. Most people had not heard of it. Acupuncture with needling. One of the acupuncture techniques is you have a stick of herbs, and you like the glowing end of a cigarette, and you apply that to you don't burn the acupuncture points, but you apply heat to them, right? And this is that's a Mars thing. Also, massage. This rules the muscles. So moving the muscles with massage, right? And flushing the muscles, working spasms out of muscles with massage. That's all a positive, harmonious Mars kind of a therapeutics. They say we should, in medicine, we should, I think Zane's adage is that Saturn's responsible for about half of the misery in life, and that Mars is responsible for about another fourth. And so in medical astrology, we ought to be paying attention to these. My corollary to that is, okay, well, Saturn is responsible for half the misery in life. But when we count astrodynes, half of the power, you add half of the power of Saturn aspect to a discordines. Okay, so, but what about the other half? It's easy for us to think, say, in natural therapeutics, Saturn is really good. Saturn is possible fasting. It's some self-discipline. It's avoiding the food that gives you abdominal bloating and joint pain, right? It takes some discipline, some Saturn discipline to do that. And so we ought to know if half of the Saturn power is discord, the other half of it is very useful, right? And essential. And the same with Mars, that Mars, it's only a fourth of the Mars power is discordant. So 3/4 of that power of Mars is useful, necessary, foundational, essential to your life to express in a healthy way. So, okay. Conversion, you encourage positive expression in therapeutic methods of Mars. For example, aerobic exercise as an alternative to heart surgery. This is actually done. Two different methods have done that. There was a thing called the Pritikin plan, and they put the person on a certain diet, but then had them do like a certain amount of exercise on an exercise bike every morning and every afternoon, and they prevented the need for heart surgery in a large number of patients for doing that. So it has to be done with proper supervision. And okay, acupuncture, needling, treatment for pain. This would be an example of conversion, right? Normally you get stuck with a needle, you're thinking, ouch, and they generally don't hurt that bad, the acupuncture. But anyway, that's an example. Okay. Here, the very useful as an antidote to the moon or Pluto afflictions, the aggressive and initiatory energy of Mars, the defensive, protective, defending the boundaries, counteracts the tendency to passivity and mediumism of the moon and Pluto. So, okay. Now here, this is a little lesson in medicine. This is always in the very first chapter of a pathology book in medical school. They say, what is inflammation, right? And if you just learn this, you just learn these steps. Any disease that ends in itis is this, right? So they teach this first, and this is in the first place. Inflammation. This is absolutely essential to know. Inflammation inflammation is the immune system, right? We can read the history of medicine, and I can go back to the say the early 1800s, when the various schools of medicine were emerging in North America, and there were some that they were like the heroic doctors. They would give mercury cathartics to make you purge everything in your bowels, and they would let blood. Anybody who had a fever, they'd let out a pint of blood, right, in order to cool them off. And this is very harsh. And then there were other schools. These were doctors who mainly used herbs, right? So of course this is my field. So we have all those textbooks going back a couple of hundred years, and but you can tell which school it is in if you open the book, and the first chapter says, fever is not a disease and inflammation is not a disease, right? Then you know this is the alternative school, right? If you read it, it says a person with a fever, you should let a half a pint of blood in the morning and that much in the mid-afternoon, and you should continue with the mid-afternoon dose, even if they get faint from blood loss, right? You say, okay, that's not the alternative natural medicine. Kind, right? And this is what those books say. So this is our first page here. Inflammation is good. It's a beneficial process. Okay. Now it can hurt. All right, it can hurt. So we'll talk about that. But here you have what happens. You have an injury, tissue gets hurt, or you have, and you'll see the significators, the planetary significators here. An injury, something gets hurt, or an infection, an invader gets in there. So the immune system starts secreting chemicals. It says, "Oop, that's not us," or "Oops, that's a piece of broken tissue." They secrete chemicals, right? And those chemicals hit your pain receptors, and it hurts. Okay, so inflammation has a chemical trigger causing pain. The chemical trigger then dilates the blood vessels in the area that it comes in contact with, right? And the net result is to increase the blood flow into that area, right? This, and then the symptom then is redness or heat. So here you can think a sunburn, right? A sunburn, the chemical trigger causes the burn vein, and then the chemical trigger dilates the capillaries there, and you get more blood in the skin, and the skin looks red. So you have pain, redness. And then now this dilated blood vessel opens up, and it allows blood plasma to flood into the area, and now you get swelling. And here you can think, oh my gosh, pain, redness, swelling, that has to be bad, right? No, it's not bad, okay. And then now in this kind of swollen area, boggy area with kind of the vessels are kind of open, the white blood cells stream into that area, and it's the white blood cells that can destroy invaders, right, or remove debris. Right? They can eat all that up. This would be pus formation. Okay, and then the last stage is influx of fibrocytes. These are circulating cells that build connective tissue, right? You have this little fibrocyte. It looks like a white blood cell. It comes into an area, but then it starts putting out strings of protein, collagen and elastin, and it makes connective tissue, a matrix all around itself. So if you've had a wound, it's the last stage is those fibrocytes come into that area and they start building new connective tissue, and you get a scar where you had the wound. So this is process is essentially protective and essentially constructive, right? So this is the pathology. Why is this pathological? Well, what if it's the inflammation is just much too strong, stronger than is appropriate? What if the inflammation is starting to destroy the tissue instead of help? And that's a possibility. And also, inflammation is supposed to be short, right? You're supposed to get rid of the problem, right? And some people can have a chronic infection, or it's very, very common that people eat a food that they're intolerant to, like milk or gluten, and those create inflammation in the gut, which spread out into the whole system. And then now that person's eating that food 3 times a day. You're constantly shoveling fuel on the fire, and the person can become inflamed. It can go anywhere from feeling the blahs to having rheumatoid arthritis to having an autoimmune disease from that. So it's chronic because there's a chronic stimulant of the fire. And so the natural method isn't to shut Mars off. The method is to remove the fuel from the fire, right? Or increase the natural nutrients which put a container on that. Okay. Just some. Okay, why it becomes chronic. I think I'm going to, well, I'll do it. Yeah. This can change your life, right? Food intolerance. The daily consumed food pours fuel on the fire. Okay, the immune system sees proteins in some foods as if they were foreign invaders. The most common are milk products and glutinous grains. Okay, the immune response begins in the gut, and then the components migrate out and they circulate system-wide, and they can create inflammation anywhere else in the body, even though they originated in the gut. You could say, why? Well, why would milk or glutinous grains or egg or soy or beans or something like that cause these problems? The main issue is that human beings, Homo sapiens, has been eating foods for 2.4 million years, and almost never ate any of those foods in the 2.4 million years, right? Now we have a complex society where you can get milk every day, right? But you weren't having a whole lot of cavemen and women weren't actually stealing a lot of milk from buffaloes and to pour on their cereal in the morning or whatever, you know. Normally, Homo sapiens doesn't normally drink anything except the milk of its mother or a close relative until they're about 4 or 5 at the most. And after that, human beings don't eat milk, right? So this is one of the most common disease-producing foods when people eat it. Okay. The other analogy besides food on besides fuel on the fire is your sprinkler system, right? And one of the most important things for the sprinkler system is vitamin D. It puts a brake on inflammation. It's kind of like, it doesn't shut inflammation off, but it puts a firewall in it. It says, okay, yeah, we want some immunity, but you can only come this far, right? And that is most North Americans in the wintertime have a vitamin D deficiency to the point where it produces symptoms. Okay. And then also essential fatty acids of the type that you get in fish oil or ocean-going fish or grass-fed meats. Okay. Here, this is fever is not a disease, and we're talking about Mars here. Fever is not a disease. This is the normal average body temperature is about 97.8 in the morning, right? And 98.2 in the afternoon. Now, I promise you, I have an article from the 1980s published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. That's one of the most conservative medical journals in the world. And the title is The Myth of 98.6, right? And they basically said the German guy who came up with 98.6 either rigged his data, faked his data, or his instruments couldn't measure temperature accurately because no normal temperature is not 98.6, right? So many people have done many measurements. Many trials get different results, but the average of the outcomes is about 97.8. Would be the average normal human body temperature in the morning when you wake up. And that goes up about half a degree as the day goes on, and your metabolism goes up. So we're hermeticians, we're alchemists. One of the most important things you can do for your personal alchemy for health is to know what your baseline temperature is, right? And how much it rises by 4 in the afternoon. That's just self-knowledge, because especially as we get older, very many people who are like over 60 or 70, their baseline temperature is like 96.8, not 98.6, right? And this is important to know because if you're at 98.6 and you're normally 96.8, you've got a fever. But the doctor will tell you you're normal, right? So you should know, this is part of Mars alchemy, you should know when Mars is kicking in and raising your body temperature and your metabolism to fight something off. Okay. here, I'm going to move on to the astrology here. There we go. Here, okay. Mars. We've seen this slide before, but I'll come back to it. It's injuries. Mars, this is the destructive aspect of Mars, and injury. This one, I thought, well, you can have an injury or whatever, and I just thought, well, what about career-ending injury? A career-ending injury should have a clear indication in the horoscope, right? Both in the natal and in the progressed, right? And if it doesn't, I'll return to this again and again. If it doesn't, I'm going to find another profession, because that's there has to be something like that going on. If someone's tissue or their joint or whatever is so damaged that they can't continue their previous activity, there had to have been a traumatic blow there. So this was, I did pull up, I looked up just career-ending injuries. You can find a lot of stuff on Google these days, and I had 25 charts. Okay, this charts had Mars prominent in the natal chart. This is prominent by our usual rules of prominence, like in one of the angles or aspects the Sun, Moon, or Mercury, or as in a very close aspect to another planet, or aspects many planets. That's our normal rules of prominence. Okay, the charts with a discordant, at least one discordant natal aspect to Mars, they all had at least one discordant natal aspect to Mars. Okay. Charts with a net discord to Mars, right? This is when you put together the harmodines and discordines, and this was 20 of the 25, 80% were net, but that meant that 20%, right, were net harmonious. And you look at the chart and you say, oh, that person has a harmonious Mars, right? They're going to be fine. No, that person still had a career-ending injury, even though there was a net harmony with the astrodines. And then charts with a progression to Mars, they all had at the time of the injury. Sometimes this was usually a discordant aspect, but sometimes it was a harmonious aspect, which you see this sometimes. You'll have a large potential. The thought cells are trying to manifest something, and even just adding some power, even if it's harmonious, can trigger the release of that energy. Okay. Now, these also, like some of these were knee injuries, some of them were head injuries, some of them were shoulder injuries and foot injuries, and so on. So charts with a discordant aspect for the anatomical sign, and that would be either a planet in the sign or the ruler or one of the co-rulers of the sign had a discordant aspect. That's every one of them had that in the natal chart. Chart with a net discord in the sign was only about half, and that meant, let's just say someone has you look on astrodines, this person has a harmonious Capricorn, right? Net harmonious Capricorn, but there's a discordant aspect in there. That discordant aspect, even in a net harmonious Capricorn, can manifest as a knee injury. So, okay. And then charts with a progression to sign of the ruler, that was 100%. Okay, so Mars and injuries. And if I did one here. Here's another one. This is a trigger warning. You all know the person Frida Kahlo. She's the Mexican artist, a remarkable human being. Mexico was, at the time she was there, and her Diego Rivera, her sort of consort and fellow artist, were there. Mexico had a big colonial legacy, and there was a, the lighter skinned European style, sort of upper class, right? And then a whole lot of indigenous people. And she did art that just really celebrated the indigenous dress, indigenous scenes, all of that beautiful art. And so she wasn't that influential when she was alive, but she left a permanent cultural impact on Mexico, on the society in Mexico. It's quite remarkable. And she also had the most serious injury that I have ever seen that anyone survived, right? So that's why I'm calling to say this is a trigger warning. Be aware. She had a serious auto accident at age 16. The electric trolley car crashed into a wooden bus. which she was riding. She was pierced by the trolley's metal handrail, which entered her lower body on the left side and exited through her vagina. Her spinal column and pelvis were each broken in 3 places. Right? Her collarbone and 2 ribs were broken as well. And her right leg, one which had previously been deformed by polio, right, was shattered and fractured in 11 places. And her right foot was dislocated and crushed. Okay. All right. Now, I'm I'm going to return to this again. I'm going to show you the chart, but if I pull this chart up, and it isn't the most discordant chart I've ever seen, then I'm going to get a new profession. Right? So here we go. This is the chart. I'll show you the bigger version. This is the chart. It's a tremendous discord, which is structured around the Sun-Mars opposition. If you notice, the Sun-Mars opposition is to the degree in the minute. And the very, very potent Mars discord. There are aerials to the ascendant, okay? Mars is conjunct Uranus. And, where Mars makes the aspect, adds discord. It's also, if Mars here is 13, it's also opposite Neptune. And also opposite Jupiter, and so on. And so then the opposition there has aggravating it has this square of the ascendant to the moon and the midheaven. Okay, and then these have the semi-square sesquiquadrate relationships going there also. So that is extremely discordant. And here, I mentioned this when we talked a little bit about gunshot wounds at one point, and that I had some charts of assassinations, right? And like, say one person was assassinated and maybe the bullet went into their head and then down and exited their lung, right? And you can, in the chart, you can see the discord in the head, the neck, and the lung, right? You could trace the path of the bullet with the discords there. So this is the same way. We have actually here, here we have her, the Mars aspects, okay? This is just the Mars aspects. We're studying Mars today, okay? Mars is semi-square the moon. The moon rules the ribs. She broke some ribs, okay? Mars is opposite Jupiter in Cancer. That is the Jupiter, that's the upper leg and the pelvis, which she broke, right? Remember the upper leg and the pelvis? And then also in Cancer, it affects the rib, okay? And then also Jupiter, never forget, it's a co-ruler of Pisces and the feet, right? So here we have the indicator for the feet. Okay, Mars is conjunct Uranus in Capricorn. That's the lower leg up to the knee and the knee, right? Okay. Mars is opposite Neptune in Cancer. That's the Neptune is the feet, Cancer the ribs. Okay. And then Mars is sesquiquadrate, the ascendant in Leo. That's the spine, broken in 3 places. And then we have here, we also have Pluto conjunct Venus in Gemini. This is square to Saturn and sesquiquadrate to Mercury. And then here on the day of the accident, progressed Mars is sesquiquadrate to the ascendant exactly. Okay, 23, yeah, 31. Okay, and okay. And exact and progressed Neptune over here is opposite to Mars. Neptune is progressed to opposite Mars and is conjunct the Sun-Mars opposition. Or you can see that better here. We have the Sun-Mars opposition, 1322, 1323. Up here we have Neptune's progressed here, there. Okay. There's a, okay, super Mars traumatic injury, and but there you could trace every bit of her injury through an aspect to the Mars on there. So, okay. She also had constants for paralytic polio. She had polio as a child, and one of her legs was deformed. So anyway, this I was said this has to be one of the most discordant charts I've ever seen. Saturn aspects 5 planets. It aspects the moon in the midheaven. It's square to Venus and trine to Jupiter. It's pretty dominant. Okay, and I added up the aspects. The chart has 6 oppositions, 4 squares, 11 sesquisquares or sesquiquadrates, 1 conjunction to a malefic, right? And then it has 2 weak trines, 5 sextiles, and 5 conjunctions or parallels to a benefic planet, right? This has to be one of the most discordant charts you've ever seen in your life. And I want to say, this soul contributed mightily to the well-being of the Mexican people, right? And the self-esteem, and introduced things into the culture there, which still help people with cultural self-esteem today, generations after she's passed away. So there, okay. We're talking about Mars. How can we talk about Mars and not talk about the Terminator, right? Here, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the bodybuilder, right? Now here, we don't have any doubt that Arnold Schwarzenegger, if Mars rules muscles, that Arnold Schwarzenegger has a dominant Mars, possibly a ruling Mars, but at least certainly dominant. So we're going to look at a couple of things here. When he was a governor of California, he suffered minor injuries in a motorcycle accident that required 15 stitches on his lip. Okay. Okay. The motorcycle he was driving collided with a car backing out of a driveway. This was on January 8th. Okay, November 7th, 2006, he suffered a fracture to his right femur, upper leg, while skiing in Sun Valley. Okay, and then 3 days later, he underwent surgery to repair the broken leg. Okay? So we're going to look for Mars here. Okay, and the lips would be Aries, and the femur would be Sagittarius. And here, I'm going to go into some of the details here. Let's look at his chart in the first place just a second. I meant to do them in the other order, but this is all right. If you look at the natal chart, you go, okay, well, let's just say we know he has a dominant Mars. How does this chart show a dominant Mars? It isn't really evident. You have a 12th house Mars. You would think, oh, 12th house is a weak position. But Mars is the highest planet in the chart, right? So we do count a prominence when a planet is the highest in the chart, okay? Mars has a semi-square aspect to the sun, okay? And it's conjunct Uranus, and it aspects the midheaven. It's square to the midheaven, right? So it's highest in the chart, and it's connecting to key significators here, okay? Mars is also parallel to Pluto, by the way, okay? So this is what we have. He won the, have you seen the pictures of him when he was young and he won those bodybuilding contests? The guy was the shape of a barrel and nothing but muscle, right? It was just incredible what was there. So, okay. Here, we will, let's just look a little more into this. The pieces we see in this chart are the Mars, okay? The Mars aspecting the sun, the midheaven, and conjuncting Uranus. We also have a big square here. This is Jupiter is square to Saturn and Pluto, okay? And so these are two of the major discords in the chart. And here we'll do, let me just do it like this. This is the accident where he broke his leg, okay? We had Mars is, this is natal. This is the natal Mars is conjunct Uranus etc. Jupiter is square to Saturn. It's also semi-square to the moon, right? So we're looking here for, we don't have anything in this chart. We don't have anything in Sagittarius. So we're looking at Jupiter, and which is the planet we're studying, right? So, so Jupiter is square to Saturn and Pluto, okay? And here again, we would want to see, for an accident like this, we'd want to see Mars progressions. We want to see Mars writ large on the progressions, right? And you actually don't see much until you start looking at the parallels. Progressed Mars is parallel to the ascendant and to Venus. Progressed Uranus and progressed Pluto are parallel to Mars are. Right? So we've come back to this theme again and again. We have to use parallels. If you can't use parallels, you can't time your medical astrology. Right? Sometimes they're what you need to explain it. And we know parallels add intensity to things. So if you already have a discordant aspect and you make a parallel to that, that's going to add some intensity and you can manifest that. So here the femur. The femur progressed Saturn. This is progressions. Progressed Saturn is now exactly square to Jupiter, and so here we have a Mars accident affecting the hip, broke the hip, broke his pelvis. So I like this. We're studying Jupiter here. This is an empty Sagittarius, but we have Jupiter was sufficient to bring that into there. And okay, this is another. This is a study of alcoholism. This is the quote of the constants from Zane. Prominent and usually heavily afflicted Mars. An aspect of Mars to the moon increases the predisposition, especially if it's an affliction. Those who become habitual drunkards usually have prominent and usually afflicted Neptune. Okay. I have, so I did, let's see if I put the statistics there. Yes, I did. In a series of 6 charts for individuals with alcoholism, each had a prominent and afflicted Mars and Neptune. This I'm kind of going back and taking whereas we had the published constants in our literature. I'm going back and doing. I'm aiming to do series of 10, right, and see if I can verify that with series of 10. And I have some new ideas about possible other things, so I'm checking them out with a shorter series of things. And but here, each this series 5 of the 6 had aspect of Mars to Neptune, right? And the other had Saturn to Neptune, right? So we're seeing Neptune is probably really important there. And but only 4 of them had aspects of Mars to the moon, right? So Zane had suggested aspect of Mars to the moon increases the predisposition, but in this particular series, it was only 4 of the 6 actually had that. Now, I'm going to have to edit these slides before I send you the permanent, because I just redid that data and I added another chart to it, but forgot to remove the first slide. So there's a series of 7 charts of alcoholics. All had a discordant aspect to natal Mars. All had a discordant aspect to natal Neptune. All had an aspect of either Mars or Saturn to Neptune, and usually discordant, right? And aspects of Mars to the moon were not consistent. Only 2 of the 7 had no aspect. Most of them had a harmonious aspect, right, rather than a discordant one of Mars to the moon. So okay, we'll at least for now we'll stick with Mars, Neptune, and possibly Saturn in there also. Okay. This is actor David Carradine, the Kung Fu guy, and he a very serious alcohol problem, and we can look at the you can see an expression of that. The chart has a Mars Neptune opposition straight across the first house there. Let's see. Is that correct? No, that's not correct. Okay. This is Neptune opposite the, oh, here we go. Neptune is opposite the ascendant, and then that's semi-square and sesquiquadrate to Mars, right? So this is the Mars is sesquiquadrate to Neptune. That's our adverse Mars to Neptune aspect. This is, if you remember in the first classes when I showed those aggravated patterns, would start looking like spider webs of discord, right? This one is the most spidery web of the spidery web discord patterns on the charts here. You have a grand cross. The thing is structured on a grand cross, and then there's a T-square woven into that, such that the ends of the T-square are sesquiquadrates to the ends of the grand cross, right? Almost all the way around, right? So this would be, that's friction, 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 just really a lot of discord there. So this is a serious alcoholism there. Okay. This I thought I'd build in. I want to emphasize Mars has its constructive aspect. And so this isn't exactly medical astrology, but this is a guy, Romano Mussolini, construction. He's a construction magnate in Italy. He actually ended up, either he became, I forgot if he's a musician or an artist, but he started out in the construction business, right? And he was a recording artist for that. He started out in the lumber and construction business and was very successful at that. And down here, we can look. If you see, we're going to look at Mars. I'm talking about the building construction aspect of Mars, right? There's Mars is conjunct the sun, the moon, and Mercury, right? In the fourth house of real estate and buildings, right? So this is a guy who became a famous builder, right? And here he had some, I don't want to go further into it. I just wanted to show the picture of a really constructive expression of Mars in the house there. We have another one here is Whoopi Goldberg. I don't know if people know, but Whoopi Goldberg was an expert bricklayer before she was an actress. And they say, this is what they said, she was diligently building walls of the San Diego Zoo when she was noticed for her skills as a builder that earned her an invitation to join the Bricklayers Union, which she did, right? So Whoopi Goldberg, bricklayer, right? And she, in the time since, she left behind her trowel in exchange for a microphone, etc. So that's Whoopi Goldberg. If we look at her chart, where would we see Mars in her chart? You think Mars is prominent in that chart? Here, it's the only planet on the ascendant side of the chart, and it's right there conjunct the ascendant, even though it's in the 12th house. It aspects a generous number of planets, right? And so this would be prominent, quite possibly the ruler of the chart. And so this is her skilled at construction. I do have, this is pretty good discord there. I noticed she C15 there. You don't really see a lot of harmonious aspect to this Mars, right? This is a lot of discordant aspects. So even though she's a skilled and successful bricklayer, right, it probably was a discordant experience. So, but here she was very seriously ill a few years ago and almost died in the hospital, and of a Mars type condition. She was admitted to the hospital with pneumonia. Okay, and February 2019, and she'd been coughing for a while. She started having trouble breathing. She went to the hospital. She had double pneumonia, and she developed sepsis. That's the life-threatening blood infection. A lot of people die of sepsis in the hospital. So this is really strong Mars for the pneumonia, for the infection. We do have the other constants for pneumonia, like a weak sun, and a possible moon is involved, and for the lower lobes, and then Neptune may be involved also for the susceptibility, weakness, susceptibility to infection. But here we'll look at we saw her. She has this square here where the let's come back and look at it in more detail. The Mars natally is it's probably within orb of square to Venus, definitely to Sun, Saturn, and opposite Pluto. Pluto's angular, so you get enough in there. And but here we don't really see a strong indicator here. We don't have anything in Gemini, for instance, for pneumonia. And then here Mercury is one of Scorpio, probably square to Jupiter and Uranus. But when it comes to the time of the event, let's see, do I have a bigger version of that? Yes, I do. Okay. Come to the time of the event, what's happened here, this incredible Mars event, sepsis is a super Mars event. The Mars has progressed to a semi-square to its original position, right? So that's putting a lot of discord and stress. And it has also progressed to a sesquiquadrate to Mercury, right? So here we have added, is that a sesquiquadrate, or is that a quincunx, I think? Yeah, that's a quincunx. Okay, okay, and but this is where we're looking for the fever, the infection, a massive infection, a massive blood infection. There's the Mars coming through the lungs is Mercury. Okay, now in addition, we have some other stuff going on, and we have, for instance, progressed Sun is square to Neptune. Okay, and we also have here progressed Saturn is sesqui-square to the Moon. Right. Remember, Moon can be involved with pneumonia through the lower lobes of the lung. Okay. So Mars. Let's see what we have here. Okay. Remember, fever and inflammation are both essentially defensive and constructive processes. Then I would contend if she hadn't had a good Mars, that she probably couldn't have fought off that infection, right? That you could think, oh, the Mars caused the problem. Well, no, the thing happened, and right, but the Mars, she successfully fought off a life-threatening infection. Her doctor had given her one chance in 3 of not surviving the sepsis. Okay. The way you can think about this, because Mars has destructive and also constructive aspect to it, in the early stages of inflammation, it destroys invading organisms, right? In the later stages of inflammation, it reconstructs and heals the tissues in the area. So it's sort of like the warrior and the bricklayer, right? Is as you roll through that process, you get both those aspects of Mars in there. This is important when it comes to taking drugs. This is relevant during COVID. People who get COVID, you feel bad. You have a headache, you have buzzy aches or whatever, and you feel bad. So you're going to take some aspirin, right? Well, what happens in that process, it's those chemical triggers that are making you feel bad, right? But those chemical triggers are what are attracting the healing power, right? So every time they've measured it, they say, what is the effect of taking aspirin or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs on the course of a viral infection, right? The viral infection lasts longer and becomes more severe if you take aspirin or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, right? And the reason is you just turned off the chemical triggers to relieve your pain, but those chemical triggers were what were bringing the healing response to fight off the virus when you do that. Okay, and then this is also I'm focusing on the fighting, and then the bricklaying aspect. They did a trial people with osteoarthritis, right, in their fingers, right, kind of wear and tear arthritis in their fingers. They took 2 groups, and one group took aspirin or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs for their arthritis pain. The other group, they said, okay, you can do anything you want, right? You can exercise, massage them, rub them, soak them in the water, do whatever you want, but you can't take medications for it, right? And the people who didn't take the medications, then their joints healed faster than the people who took the medications, right? And the reason is that turning off the inflammatory response turned off the bricklaying stage at the end, turned off the actual tissue healing of the joints that would happen at the end. So here, you know, for our alchemy, we want to find a way to embrace Mars and do a dance with Mars, right? And support our system with really good rest, right? You can, yeah. The fever itself doesn't, of itself, fever does not present any risk to human beings. I think I sent out last week, didn't I send an article about that? That was an article from the American Academy of Pediatrics, right? That's kind of like the Vatican of pediatrics, right? And the article basically says in that article, there's no level of fever in a child or an adult that poses any risk to their life, right? The cause of the fever might cause a problem, but the fever itself, the body temperature getting high, doesn't cause any damage for that to happen. So we, with natural medicine, we really emphasize resting. And you can even, counterintuitively, you can even, this would be like conversion. You can go stand in a shower as hot as you can stand it, right? When you have a fever, and then go bundle up in warm blankets and let yourself sweat or whatever is going to go on. And it seems counterintuitive, but what's happening is the body is working really, really hard to raise your body temperature, right? Right, because it's beneficial. Your metabolism is running as if you were jogging, right? When you have a fever, right? So it ups your metabolism. That's the beneficial aspect of fever. But so if you go help it raise its temperature with a hot shower and staying in warm blankets, then your body doesn't have to work so hard, right, to raise the temperature. And that can help a person. It can help with muscle aches, with the discomfort of a fever. Really good. So I think, yeah, this is our last one. This is Tallulah Bankhead, actress. It's ironic that while performing the role of Jezebel on Broadway, she nearly died of a severe gonorrheal infection in her uterus. And she had to be, she collapsed during a performance, right, and had to be taken to the hospital, had an emergency hysterectomy from having a sexually transmitted disease, right? So Zane says the sexually transmitted diseases can be indicated either by Mars or Venus, right? And so I thought in this case, I would include this case. And here we have, you can see she has this is a Mars-Venus conjunction. Go to the horoscope program there within org there. You have a Mars-Venus conjunction. This little stellium of planets here, they're not all conjunct, but they're, you know, okay, these are all up there together. Mars-Venus conjunction, and then the Mars is square to the Scorpio moon. So the Scorpio would be the uterus, right? And the Mars would be the infection. And then also Mars would be the surgery, a surgical operation. And for the infection, we do have this complication here. We have the moon is sesquiquadrate to Neptune, and these are sesquiquadrate down here to Jupiter. So there's a discord there. We also have Pluto, Pluto opposite Uranus there. Pluto being the co-ruler of Scorpio, right? So this would be sudden collapse, sudden onset, unexpected surgery, gone, right? So there's that. We do have issues here with Saturn. Also, Saturn's 21 to, yeah, Saturn's aspecting these planets up here. And here what I have, see Mars-Venus conjunction in stellium, square to the moon in Scorpio. And, oh, I don't have it there. Here the, okay, well, never mind. Surgery, she had surgery, you want to see the 8th house there? Well, there's, oh, I know why. We have to look at the progressions here, just a second. We, I thought I had some notes on those. All right, I didn't. All right. I think we're done for tonight. Oops, did I only just finish Mars? Okay, I will do some more. I'll get into Jupiter. I don't think I can finish Jupiter though, but we'll get into here. Wow, the whole thing was on Mars. I didn't know that. So okay. Yeah, I should spend some more time because I won't be able to finish by the end of the class. Jupiter rules the arteries, arterial system. Boom. The difference between arteries and veins, right? Veins are basically just a reservoir. They're just like a holding tank. And then the blood draws, when it needs some venous blood, it'll suck some up out of the holding tank, right? Arteries, on the other hand, are high pressure pipes, right? And they get the pressure of the heartbeat, and they move the blood out to the tissues. The blood diffuses out of the tissues, and all the blood pressure is spent in the tissues, and then the veins have no blood pressure, right? So the arterial side and the venous side are very, very different in their physiological function there. So, okay. It rules the liver. It rules the fat, and glycogen is stored carbohydrate in the liver. It can be turned into sugar. And also rules the manufacture and secretion of insulin by the pancreas. So this is very important. I won't be able to do the whole Jupiter tonight, but this is very important. We think Jupiter is the benefic, right? And physiological, Jupiter is what we call insulin is what we call an anabolic hormone. That means that it makes things grow, right? What insulin does is put nutrients into tissues, and then they grow. So it's an expansive factor. This is the Jupiter expansion. This is why insulin is ruled by Jupiter for that. So we have a lot of modern diseases are characterized by insulin problems, like too much insulin. We know one type of diabetes, you don't have enough insulin, right? So your blood sugar goes up, right? Well, most common form of diabetes, you have too much insulin, right? And the insulin is causing all kinds of havoc in the body, but your tissues have become so resistant to the effects of the insulin that you develop another kind of diabetes. So I'm not sure if I'll get all the way into the insulin resistance side of things tonight, but this is it's important. Jupiter, insulin, and insulin is very important in medicine. Okay, okay. Warm, moist, nourishing, expansive, positive, masculine. Warm. Here we have warm and dry. In our weather course, we say it's warm and dry weather. Here, as Heindel says, it's warm and moist. I'm not sure myself. Okay. This is the pathology. It affects through the overabundance of something growing too much. Okay. Okay. Corpulence, too much fat, right? Your fat cells are containing too much fat. Okay. It's associated with diabetes, acidosis, well, biliousness, that's liver, catarrh, that's too much mucus, okay? Autointoxication, that is buildup of metabolic byproducts, and also toxins from the colon building up in the system, autointoxication. Carbuncles are boils, fatty tumors, lumps of fat. And also, Zane says, it contributes to cancer. Now, cancer, we have Saturn. We're going to do Saturn next week, but cancer, we say primarily a disease of Saturn, but it also, we have Jupiter is involved because the definition of Saturn, of neoplasm, of the process of cancer, is uncontrolled virulent growth of poorly differentiated tissues. So the idea is it's growth, something's growing too much, right? Something that's supposed to be just sitting there is now growing and reproducing and spreading around the body. So this is why the process of Jupiter can be involved with that. Okay. I'm going to here. This, I want to at least get into this part here. We have, here we go. Jupiter and coronary artery disease. Coronary artery, these are the arteries that supply blood to the heart. This is when you hear heart attack. A heart attack is, there's an obstruction in the blood vessel that supplies the blood to the heart muscle, right? So part of the heart muscle doesn't get blood, so it cramps, right? And then you have angina pain, they call it. And if the oxygen is cut off to that part of the muscle for long enough, then that part of the heart will die, and then have a piece of scar tissue there, and that can cause all kinds of problem with the heart because it's a highly coordinated, finely tuned machine. And so that is called a myocardial infarction. That would be myocardial, the muscle of the heart with a lesion in it, a scar lesion in it. So that's heart attacks. So as you expect for a heart attack, you're going to have afflictions to the sun and or a planet in Leo. Okay, that's the heart area. And this is, from saying Uranus, actually, I don't know if he had Uranus there. Uranus prominent and afflicted, Jupiter prominent and afflicted, and Saturn prominent and afflicted. Okay, and why Uranus, right? Heart attack can lead to sudden death, right? There's no warning. It's just like being struck by lightning. It goes boom, right? Whoops. And you don't always just fall over dead, but sometimes after a couple of hours, you're dead, which is relatively sudden. So compared to being alive. So Uranus prominent, Jupiter prominent and afflicted, and this is because the heart attacks are primarily an arterial disease. They're a disease of the arteries. Okay, and here is I was checking a sequence of 23 charts of individuals who suffered heart attacks. Each had a prominent natal and progressed constants to those planets above: Uranus, Jupiter, and Saturn. Okay, and there's some more about that. What happens for a heart attack? You have an artery, normal artery. Then you have the lining on the inside of the artery, the endothelium, on the inside of the artery, with the blood flowing there, and that has all kinds of things in it. It has immune system in it, and clotting factors in it, and beneficial things in it. But what happens is chronically there's systemic inflammation, there's systemic irritation in the system from various causes, and it irritates that arterial wall, and it becomes a chronic inflammation in the artery. So the wall starts to grow tissue. It starts to fill in with tissue. Remember, inflammation has trigger, and then it ends up laying bricks, right? So you start laying bricks on the inside of the arteries. It's a healing, and you develop what's called plaque, atherosclerotic plaque. And the dynamism is then irritation, inflammation, and then growth, which is Jupiter, chronic, which is Saturn, right? Chronic, and then the artery loses its flexibility because it has this stuff growing inside it. And then the actual event, the artery becomes atrophied. The actual event is that there is suddenly a rupture in this plaque in the artery. It ruptures, right? And it ruptures and starts to bleed, right, out into the artery. And the cells all around the artery say, oops, we got a bleeder there. Let's secrete clotting factors, right? And they cause a blood clot. And then the arterial muscle says, oh, there's a blood clot there, and they spasm around it. So that's the dynamism. That's what we're looking for constants and significators, right? Is the inflammation, the chronic disease, the sudden plaque rupture, and then blood clotting, right? Which causes oxygen starvation of the tissues, which would be Saturn for that, and destruction of the tissues. So this is, and then also the arterial spasm around the clot is very important, and that's also an aspect of the Uranus. Okay, so okay, this process, I like to say the process, if the afflictions in Leo, that may be a heart attack. With afflictions in Mercury or Aries, it can be a stroke, right? Or in different other parts of the body, you can get blood clots in other parts of the body also. Okay. So I'm going to do, I have a new contribution to make here. And this is, Zane mentioned something about Mars in heart attacks. What I just explained, the process, that was not known in the 1940s. That process of irritation, slow building of plaque, rupture of plaque, blood clot, healing, that was not known in the 1940s. So, but what we have here, my question is, it's definitely what's happened is a bleed and a clot, right? And I think, well, Mars must be involved in that, right? It's the blood, right? And it's like an injury and the formation of a clot. So my question is Mars involved in heart attacks? Okay. And let's see what we have here. Yeah. I have a longer sequence, but I didn't have time to to analyze them all. I think I have like more than 20 charts of heart attacks, but to answer this question, I managed to get through 8 of them. And a sequence of 8 charts with heart attacks all had the standard constants, as described above. All also had a discordant aspect to natal Mars, and all also had Mars active by progression. Okay. In 7 of the 8 charts, Mars and Jupiter were in adverse aspect to each other, right? Either natally or by progression. Okay, so this idea, what I described, that process, really fits Mars aspecting Jupiter, right? Is an injury and a blood clot forming in an artery, right? And so I'm gonna finish out the more than 20 charts like that. I'll present those at the conference this summer, and continue a discussion of this. But so you'll understand this is why Jupiter in these diseases. Jupiter can be involved in cancer because it's uncontrolled growth, can be involved in diabetes because of its insulin, too much insulin, and then it can be involved in heart attacks because it's an arterial disease, basically. And here's an example. This is the comedian Richard Pryor. Has where are we here? I think after that we come into. Okay, I'll do some more of these next week, but we can look at this to close. Richard Pryor. Here we have. We're gonna look for Leo, right? And here we have. Where's our Leo? And Pluto in Leo. Pluto in Leo has discordant aspects to Jupiter and Uranus, 2 of the other significant constants that we're looking for, right? Jupiter, Uranus, Pluto, and then Saturn Saturn afflicts the Sun, the ruler of Leo, right? So here are our constants. The constants is a planet in Leo, the Sun, the ruler of Leo, Uranus, Jupiter, and Saturn. Those are our constants. So this was my research. So what do we have up here? My question, could it be Mars affecting the arteries? That's there. And in this particular case, you see natally, he has Mars conjunct Jupiter to the degree. Everybody who has a heart attack doesn't have it to the degree, but here is that would be the blood clot in the artery there. And then I think I did describe the progressions there. No, I didn't. Okay. Somebody help me out here. What's the trigger here? We have a trigger here. What is 18? Well, okay, we're looking here at 29, 3, 3, 4, 29, 3, 4. Okay. Okay, well, I should have done that before class. I'm a little too fuzzy to figure out the progressions right now, just quick from the hip. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, there's, okay. Yeah. 22, 27, 20.
Oh, you have a semi-square between Uranus and Leo, right?
But semi-square between Uranus and
Pluto.
Oh, the progression. Yeah. Yeah. This would go to 1204. Oh, here. Yeah. Yes, this one here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Of course, that's kind of long-standing. I wonder if there isn't something else that adds volume that it happens so suddenly like that. So it would be 29, or you'd be looking for 29 or 14 up there. Not okay. And oh, maybe here. I'm gonna nope. Okay, 27 or 12. Okay. No, we'd have to. You also have to pull up the parallels. I don't have the parallels up here to look at it. But we could, often you've seen enough charts in the presentations here where the parallels told the whole story. So I don't have complete enough here to do that. Okay. I think I need to. I think I'm done. Yeah, I'm done for tonight. And I'll do some more of Jupiter next week, and we'll do Saturn and try to do Saturn and Uranus. We spend a little more time on Mars and Saturn when we're doing the medical astrology. Okay.